Coming up, it's our 2026 ACSA Vice President Town Hall Forum. We'll introduce you to Diego Ochoa, the Superintendent of Foster City San Mateo School District. We are live and interactive, so we'll take your questions as well. Our Candidate Town Forum starts now. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to this 2026 ACSA Vice Presidential Candidate Forum. I'm Naj Alikhan, ACSA Senior Director of Marketing and Communications. We're honored to have you with us today on this forum. Go ahead and jump into our chat, folks. Say hello. Let us know where you're watching from today. This is a live and interactive town hall forum. So if you have questions for our candidate, you can go ahead and put those into our chat. I already see Dr. Simone Charles, who put some of the questions to us last week. You will hear some of those questions coming up in just a few minutes. But yes, go ahead and go into our chat, say hello. Let us know where you're watching from today. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and throw those into the chat as well. To give you an idea of why we are here, every year ACSA elects a new vice president. The vice president has a direct path to the ACSA presidency. Now, this is 4 years on the ACSA executive board. After winning as vice president, the candidate serves a year as vice president, then a year as president-elect, followed by a year as president, and then a year as past president. So it's 4 years on the ACSA executive board. It's a lot of responsibility, and we have a very, very good candidate to speak with you today. Diego Ochoa is the superintendent of Foster City San Mateo School District up here in Northern California. Diego, it is an honor to have you with us here on this 2026 ACSA Vice Presidential Candidate Forum. Want to just get right into the questions here. And again, if you have any questions for our candidate, go ahead and put those into the chat. Tell us a little bit about your vision for ACSA and how your vision shapes your future as a leader for our organization.
Thanks. Well, first of all, good morning and hello to all of our colleagues and everybody from every region, as far south as San Diego and as far north as the Oregon border. It's great to be with you all. I think for me, ACSA is rooted in a very simple concept. It's a very simple, but it's demanding. And it's a belief that public education needs to work for every single child in the state of California, and that it only really serves as a promise if every single child is included when we think about that statement. And so what I'm referring to are children who happen to be unhoused and move from place to place every other day. And I'm talking about children who live in foster care, and I'm talking about children with disabilities. I'm talking about kids who live in really, really far away rural parts of the state. I'm talking about kids who have incarcerated parents. I'm talking about kids who were born in other countries and are going to school here. For me, all children means every single child that crosses our threshold and comes to our schools every day. And I think historically about change that has happened in the state of California. And a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to meet Sylvia Mendez, and she's famous in California in that she was the main litigant in a suit that was filed against the state of California. And it was a segregation case. And she and her siblings lived in Westminster, down in Orange County, and they were precluded from attending a school that they wanted to attend, and they were sent at that time to the quote unquote Mexican school, and they had inferior facilities. And she and I spent some time together actually at an ACSA event and talked through what her experience was like going through that court case. And it's famous. In 1947, it was ruled unconstitutional, and she and her siblings changed the course of education for every child in the state, and all the families that have benefited for the decades that have since followed have done so because of a belief that every single child has a right to a public education. And to me, that's a very special thing. And so now we're living in a time where we have a federal administration, this Trump administration, that's passing laws and that is proposing budgets and that's changing policies, that's undoing equity work. And it's a real threat to public education, not only in California, but also throughout the entire nation. And this is a time that demands that we step forward as advocates for public education and as leaders who step up for every single child. And so for me, that leadership extends beyond the school that we work at, and it enters into a conversation about what education means for every single child. And that's what I'm excited for.
Diego, we've seen a lot of change in public education, both in California and nationally. How can ACSA continue to be influential in supporting students and school leaders?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. The first is that as leaders, we have an opportunity to open a door and to invite people in to a conversation that matters to them, that has an impact on them. Just last night here in Region 5, we held an event where we invited members of our region to put their names up to serve on our region board and to take that step towards engagement and purpose through ACSA. And we had as more applicants than we've had in many, many years. And it was a really beautiful sort of moment of connection and community. And that's where it starts. It really starts with having an attitude and an approach of looking across a conference ballroom or looking down the aisle in that conference session and asking the person next to you, where are you from and what do you do? And what happens when that door opens and the PD or the conference becomes a connection point for that ACSA member is we build community. And so that's the first part. The second part is, as an organization, we have a responsibility to seek and offer powerful and influential professional development for the members that we serve. And we're very fortunate, as you know, we have an incredible department that works in concert with our executive director that do fantastic work. And Tracy, as many of us know, has been now with ACSA a couple of years, and she's just made a huge impact on the kind of programming that we offer, and it shows. But then, more broadly, when ACSA puts on professional development events and programs, they build on the leaders within, and they involve the leaders in the actual development of the programming that our members receive, and I think it's a real strength for us.
Diego, let me say hello to some of our viewers out there. As I had mentioned, Dr. Simone Charles from ACSA Region 16. I have a whole slew of individuals from your schools, from San Mateo Foster City School District. We've got Diego Perez here, Joseph Presapio is from San Diego. Let me get a couple of others. Dr. Daryl Camp, our current ACSA president, Angela Taylor, Dr. Rini Rickard, our president-elect, with us as well, Jeanette Ramirez. So good to have all of you with us here on this 2026 ACSA Vice President Candidate Forum. Again, this is Diego Ochoa. He is the superintendent of San Mateo Foster City School District. Diego, we're now 6 years past the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that the pandemic itself created new and exacerbated old existing equity issues. Now that we see attacks on equity throughout the country and programs meant to support those marginalized students, what are some ways that ACSA can be a leader in confronting equity issues that are at the forefront of California public education?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I want to start for just a minute and talk about what actually happened during the pandemic. Is that we, for the first time in all of our careers, we got a window into the lives that our kids are leaving inside their homes, and we got to see the experiences of kids who are sharing one device between 5 kids. I personally grew up in a household where we would have absolutely suffered if we had been asked to learn during a pandemic, and for reasons having to do with economics and housing insecurity. But we got to see that, and really COVID-19 pulled the curtain back on the financial inequity that existed. And it also challenged us to think about what a public education needed to offer from the outset for every student. And at the same time, as an organization and as a state, money started to come in, and we had a responsibility to try to figure out how to utilize that money to kickstart the education experience that our students were having. And superintendents and boards and teachers all throughout the state did excellent work, and they really put that money to good use, and they made good faith efforts to provide students with an on-ramp back to learning, because those first 6 months of the pandemic were awful. They were really, really challenging. Now, having said that, the pandemic brought with it more than just the economic challenge, more than just the technology challenge. It created a connection challenge. It created an experience for students and adults alike, where we really, a lot of us put our hoods over our head and put our earphones in, and we retreated. And for some, it was a measure of safety. For others, it was an escape. And more work needed to be done in order to invite all of our students and our staff and our parents back into these public spaces and back into a sense of physical and local community. And that, was something we don't talk a lot about anymore, but it was a huge part of the education work that took place in 2020 and 2021 and even 2022. And so the pandemic brought with it, some pretty big challenges, but as leaders, ACSA stood at the forefront and did the work that was needed to be able to advocate for funding for schools, for legislation that supported school districts trying to get education kickstarted. And I think where we sit now is, first of all, we have to name inequity when we see it. We cannot act like we're looking at inequity and call it something else. And that's the first, and it's a very important. The second is we have to actually protect students that are under attack. Immigrant students in this country are under attack. LGBTQ plus identifying students are under attack in this country. And we as leaders and as educators, we have a responsibility to protect every child. So that's a real risk and a real responsibility that we have as educators. And then as an organization, one of our key initiatives has to always think about how to equip our leaders with strategies that create confidence and facilitate balanced, strong leadership across the state of California. And I think we're really united in that work, and I think we're positioned to do it well.
And folks, again, you're watching the 2026 ACSA Vice Presidential Candidate Forum. This is Diego Ochoa, the superintendent from San Mateo Foster City School District. I do see a couple of questions here in the chat from Pam and Margaret. We'll try and tackle some of those in a couple of minutes. Diego, your school district has a population of about 11,000 students. And of course, there are districts, larger districts that are smaller. ACSA represents leaders in every type of school district, 19 different regions throughout the state. How will you ensure that the voice of leaders in every district and region are represented?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. I want to just give you a heads up about something. In the first two times you introduced me, you called my district Foster City, San Mateo.
I know. I'm looking at the chat.
Listen. The cool thing is, because we're two cities, San Mateo and Foster City.
Yeah.
When I speak publicly in Foster City, I refer to the district as the Foster City San Mateo School District.
Okay.
And the Foster City families love me for it. So I just want to tell you, you have major cachet right now in the city of Foster City.
In the city of Foster City, but the people in San Mateo are not happy.
No, San Mateo, they don't worry. They're not tripping. They're like, we're good. You can put us wherever you want us. It's Foster City that really likes to hear that. But I'm going to just tell you about Esparto, and I'm going to tell you about Escondido, and I'm going to tell you about Palmdale, and I'm going to tell you about San Mateo. And those are all 4 cities in the state. They're all districts I worked in, schools I worked at, and they are all absolutely, completely unique. All of them, from a city that has literally no stoplights, to the finest city in America, to the hub of innovation, to the high desert, 120 degrees for 4 months a year and super cold. And if you know Palmdale, super windy. And also 99% free and reduced lunch down to 5% free and reduced lunch. And so, what it means to be a representative for the whole state, and that's what to me is the real um, challenge ahead for any ACSA vice president, president elect, or president, is thinking about leadership in a way that takes the diversity and the uniqueness of the different parts of the state of California and puts it at the center of the work. And that's something that for me comes naturally because I have worked in these very, very different places. Um, when you go into one of those school districts that has no stoplights, um, time slows down. Time slows down, and the environment gets real quiet. Um, but the families that send their kids to school there, they've got a burning desire, and they've got a passion to see their kids be able to pursue their dreams and live out the American dream. And for them, that might be going into a program that helps them get into UC Berkeley and say, I went from the farm to UC Berkeley. Or it might be getting into an apprentice program and getting into a career in construction or in the electrical field. And at the same time, here in San Mateo, Foster City, we have an incredibly, incredibly passionate parent community. And that parent community and the children that they send to our schools, they're looking for a little bit of everything. They're looking for equity work. They're looking for dual immersion programs. They're looking for high quality, high impact academic programs, AP programs. And it's a very unique system of schools that we have in California, where we have school districts that have as few, and in San Benito County, where I worked for a time as well, we had a school district with 6 students. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's really different. It's really unique, and ACSA represents every single school district in the state. And as vice president, part of my focus will be to lead in such a way that uniqueness and the difference in diversity of those school districts shows up in how we invite people into the conversation.
Diego, let me get to a couple of questions that are in our chat, and two of them are similar. So I'll go ahead and try and combine. Margaret Heredia asked the question: equity and student voice need to be protected and honored. How can we elevate both? And then Pam Bartfield asked the question: how can ACSA bring in more student voice or bring students to the table as we make decisions for them while moving our work forward? So let me just summarize.
Yeah.
Student voice. How can the student voice be more impactful with ACSA as public education continues to evolve here in California?
Well, I think first, we as a board and as leaders have an opportunity to look at our upcoming engagements, to look at those upcoming conferences, to look at the way that we use our leadership process to put together events for ACSA, and ask, to what extent are we missing opportunities to invite students into this work? You can have a child who has every idea under the sun for what works for them. And they can tell you from their experience what inspires them. And they can share with you from their context and their background what makes them feel motivated and what makes them feel safe. And we can have the answers to that test just literally sitting in the classrooms in our school district. And then we can hold a big event where we invite 600 leaders and talk about kids' safety and motivation and inspiration. And if we don't give these students an opportunity to step into that conversation. So I think there are a lot of things that we can do. I think one of the key strategies that's sitting right in front of us is to actually seek out student representation when we plan events that have to do with making an impact on the education kids receive. And in the state, there are models for that. State Board of Education has a model. Um, basically every high school district in the state has a model. And when you see those empowered voices sitting at the table at that leadership conversation, it makes a big difference. And I think that's an opportunity that's just, it's literally low-hanging fruit for us here at ACSA.
Joseph Prosapio is going to have you bring out your crystal ball for just a moment. He's got a two-parter here. Leaders must be future focused, maybe now in education more than ever in history. We often answer questions and discuss current challenges that we're currently facing.
Yeah.
What is something, in your opinion, that is sort of lurking in the shadows right now that may just develop into a challenge we should be preparing for now? I mean, there are a lot of things. We've kind of talked about it here during this candidate forum, the evolution of public education, the attacks on equity, the attacks on marginalized students. But is there something, you've done a lot of advocacy work, not just in your community, but statewide. Is there something that you're kind of trying to prepare yourself for, or something that you're like, this is the challenge that we are not talking about right now?
Yeah. This is, first of all, this question is a fun question. I have it in me to like go like this on the side and then kind of creep into the camera view for dramatic effect. But I'm gonna actually make a prediction here, and you're going to see a very, very powerful conversation in the state of California about this time next year when the May revise of our new governor is going to hit. And we have a very critical 12 months ahead of us. And it's a 12 months where this election process is going to bring up a lot of emotions. It's going to create some instability in terms of the attention that it requires to get somebody elected governor and superintendent of public instruction and state senators, and our country is going to go through a 90-day period from September to November of just a real focus on that political conversation. But there's some real economic risks that are just under the surface, and this new governor is going to have a huge job on their hands to figure out how to make sense of it all and how to prioritize public education. And all of us, Naj, yourself, myself, every administrator on this call, each of us has our own story of our process to our position. We went to college, we got somebody opened that door for us the first time, we stepped into it, we worked really hard. Somebody tapped us on the shoulder, we started applying for positions that felt like a passion for us, and we built our way up into our careers to where we're at. And during that time, somebody invested in us. And for me, that was public assistance. And it was an irrefutable part of the experience myself and my brothers and my family members had, was having public support for food, for housing, for education. And I am not here unless there is a very significant societal focus on prioritizing access for everybody and not just opportunity. I had every opportunity that every other student had, and so did everyone else on this call. We all had the opportunity, but there was a real investment in me and a real investment in everybody who came up during that time. And ACSA has an opportunity to really advocate for the next governor to prioritize the investment in children. Because for every dollar we invest in a prison or invest in education, it's exponentially spent more effectively on young people than it is on things like incarceration, which, as you know, is a real risk in any budget cycle. And I think that's lurking in the shadows, but I think we're ready for it. I think we're excited to get involved in that process, and it's a real opportunity for us.
Diego, you said a couple of words that I just want to point out because it leads me into my next question. You said this multiple times: invest and investment in your response to that last question. And so I just want to kind of piggyback off of that because, student and education leader advocacy has become incredibly important and it will grow in its importance. How does AXA invest in student advocacy and educator advocacy moving forward?
Well, I want to call out what we already do because I think AXA stands out as an example of an organization that has we have a philosophical approach to the work that we do. We're rooted in the belief in equity. We're rooted in our belief in access. We're rooted in our belief that as educators, we play a pivotal role in our society. So we have a very deep and strong um, philosophical commitment to what we do. But over the years, the organization and as you all know, huge congratulations and thanks to the many AXA presidents and to the current executive director and past executive directors who made some really, really important decisions to invest in legislative advocacy. And as you know, the work that AXA does is very, very strongly connected to the legislative structures that we have in place. And those structures require a lot of volunteerism and they require a lot of effort. We have region members from all over the state of California who put in their personal time to think through and read through policies. And we have an incredibly talented team of ledge action and ledge policy professionals led by Ivan Carrillo and his amazing team who bring this work into our governance process and into our ledge policy committee and what AXA can do and what AXA should do is continue the investment in the structure that we have in place that invites members of the state assembly and the state senate to reach out to us and to welcome us when we opine and when we get involved in the discussion about the laws that they're looking to pass. And then at a national level, we need to get on a plane and get ourselves to Washington, D.C., which actually several hundred of us will be doing in concert with the California School Board Association. And that's the other part I wanted to spend some time talking about is that AXA is stronger when AXA coordinates and works together with CSBA, with CALSA, with CASA, with CAPL, and all the organizations who are our affiliates and our affinity partners, because when we do this work together, the limits are really incredible in terms of the things that we can accomplish.
Diego, I already asked you one crystal ball question. I'll ask you one more. 5 years from now, where's our organization? And how do you think your perspective position in AXA leadership can move us in that direction?
Yeah, thank you for that question. In 5 years, there is going to be a monumental shift in the fundamental governance and accountability structure in the state of California. It is already happening. This is sort of like the most obvious crystal ball change that's going to take place. The new governor will, within a certain amount of time, going to appoint somebody, the Secretary of Education or the Commissioner of Education, a new position that they're putting forth. The Superintendent of Public Instruction will continue in their role, and they'll continue to have a very strong advocacy voice and continue to do that work. But the rules of the game are going to change. And AXA in 5 years will literally have a seat at that table. We will be sitting in the room when the governor and the governor's chosen chief executive are working with our partners at CSBA and CTA and SEIU and ASCME and all the other labor organizations. And when we're talking about the issues of the day, AXA will be front and center with everybody else in that conversation. The second part of it is the way that we hold schools accountable and the way that we create systems to close achievement gaps is going to change really significantly. It's happening now, the early stages at the California State Board of Education. As you know, governance takes a long time, so it's happening one meeting at a time, one presentation at a time. But the systems to evaluate student learning are actually changing, and ACSA will have a huge voice in what that outcome looks like. And as vice president, my advocacy will be for those assessments and for those accountability measures, not to hinge on a single multiple choice, pick your best answer process, but to really get at the heart of what inspires students to learn and what it means when students demonstrate their thinking to us, and when students are sitting in their classrooms saying, I want to be here, I choose to be here, and I'm excited for the learning that my school district is putting in front of me.
And Diego, I'll give you just a couple of moments here as we cross the bottom of the hour for some final thoughts.
Yeah. A couple of things. First, thank you to everybody involved in the ACSA vice president process. It takes a lot of work for the nominating committee. I want to give a huge shout out to our current past president, Rafael Plasencia. He, as you know, has been a leader for many years in ACSA and just did an extraordinary job leading this process. I want to give a huge shout out to one of my mentors, our current ACSA president, and that's Dr. Darrell Camp. He and I are separated only by the San Mateo Hayward Bridge, and he's somebody who you can rely on as a leader to include everyone in the conversation. And his leadership has really been about opening up dialogue across districts and across the state. So I just want to thank him and really congratulate him on an awesome year as president. And then I want to give a message to everybody on this call and to all of our colleagues who will watch later, and saying that ACSA and the opportunity that ACSA provides to each and every one of us, it doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to Rini or our incoming president, who's also an amazing leader. It doesn't belong to Darrell. It belongs to you. ACSA serves you. We are here doing our absolute best and working as hard as we can to keep ACSA focused on the things that matter. And those things for me are equity. Those things for me are creating a culture where every single child is seen and loved and welcomed into their classrooms. And it's creating a culture where, as leaders, we listen to our members and we do everything we can to give them the maximum amount of support so that their leadership grows and they can make a bigger impact on the education our kids receive.
That is Diego Ochoa, 2026 ACSA vice presidential candidate. Diego, it's been an honor to have you with us here. Good luck on the upcoming election, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Naj. See you, everybody.
And folks, if you like what you see, we invite you to go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. When you do, you'll get instant alerts when we've got new programming for you. You got to turn your notifications on for that. And then you'll get regular reminders about our regularly scheduled programming. That includes tomorrow's edition of the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break, where we will be talking about the federal budget, proposed cuts to programs that impact students, including some of the students that we've talked about here on this vice presidential candidate forum. So tune in for that. That is 1 p.m. tomorrow on ACSA YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. That's our live and interactive ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. Folks, thanks so much for joining us here on this 2026 ACSA Vice Presidential Candidate Forum. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the week, and we'll see you next time.